grad school applications.
I'm still recovering.
Design your path forward. Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. I am so happy that you're here. My name is Skull if you don't know me already. I am currently in India with my friend Hiteshree and I am so happy. I'm so excited for this video too because Hiteshree and I are going to be chatting about grad school applications. We're both in the MDes Publics program, the Masters in Design Studies program, and it's been a wild ride. We both finished our first year and very excited to talk about it. But let me introduce Hiteshree. She is wonderful. Right now I'm in Udaipur in her family home. You guys have probably already seen the vlog, but it's beautiful here and you have to stop by. I'll put more information in the description box. But she is wonderful and this is her home. So she's been welcoming me here.
Thank you, Skola. This is so kind, and it's just so good to have you here and to have my first friend from Harvard at home. It's really special, and to have you as a first friend here. And we, like, back in school, we were only discussing it and thinking about it, that I should go to Nigeria and it'd be lovely to host her in India, but Skola made it happen. We only expect her to do it.
So sweet. But she's gonna come to Nigeria. I'm gonna.
Okay, yeah, we'll do a version there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we thought it'd be nice to just talk about the grad school process or the grad school application process.
It was so stressful.
It was
so
a lot.
stressful.
Yeah. So this
I'm
is
still recovering.
Say we were talking about, like, there were tears, like there's a lot that happened in like the summer of, what was it, I guess, like 2020.
2021. Oh, you started in 2020?
I started 2020 because I did the MArch one for a year first.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll start with first our backgrounds and what led us to apply to architecture or design programs, and then from there we'll talk about like the application process itself. And the hope is for this to be an opportunity of solidarity for you, for all of us, I guess, and then encouragement, of course, as you're going through the application process. So let's just begin. Do you want to talk about your background and what brought you to design?
Yeah, firstly, it's such a brilliant initiative, Skola, because I wish I had access to something like this back when I was applying. I mean, there were other universities and students who had similar blogs for those particular programs, but the GSD, apart from the open house, didn't really have such conversations that were helpful. So I think this is just such a super initiative. Having said that, my background is in industrial design. I studied industrial design at Hiteshree, which is a design school down south in India in Bangalore, and then I went on to working as a mainstream industrial designer, furniture designer, did a little bit of exhibitions, and that was my introduction to spaces and and that was more commercial work with a lot of brands, with a lot of furniture companies, a lot of we actually did an exhibition for a paint company. So yeah, just interesting, diverse sort of work. But I realized when the pandemic hit that I was sort of craving a little bit of an academic rigor. What happened to me at that time was that the founder of that particular company started India's first virtual design museum, and which gave me the opportunity to research and curate one of the first virtual exhibits, which was literally tracing India's design history, which sort of traces itself back to the Bauhaus and parts of it to the GSD.
Wow.
And I was like, I need to do more of this because that was just really exciting to get that academic nurturance and just to know a little bit of design history in the profession that you're working in, just a history of the profession that you're working in. So that was really exciting, and I always did have GSD at the back of my mind, but I knew it was academically inclined, very research oriented, and I didn't have the language to apply or even sort of express myself if I were to do that course. So I did a liberal arts fellowship in India called the Young India Fellowship at Ashoka University, right outside of Delhi.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So yeah, that 1 year was an exposure to me for courses like economics, gender history, Indian history, policy, public policy, philosophy of science, linguistics, just
amazing.
A whole lot of subjects that I never thought I could do. So even though I didn't pick up one particular subject in detail, but it gave me a breadth of language, I would say, to just understand what different disciplines are like and to be able to have those conversations. And I think for me, design's never been one discipline. It's always
Yeah.
been that creative opportunity to make those links. So this was a good opportunity to study those subjects from a designer's perspective and see where economics and public policy comes in place with a design solution.
Absolutely.
And I didn't even realize how it would help later, but while I was doing that fellowship for a year, I was also simultaneously applying, and definitely all of that training helped me write my application better. So it's not like I suggest or advise people on doing a liberal arts fellowship or doing an academic fellowship before applying to the GSD, but that was just my route because I didn't know any better. And yeah, which was kind of organic, and it crafted my journey. So I would only urge people to have their own journeys and to really do what feels right and to sort of fill the gap in terms of what you feel is missing, and not look at other people's CV and try to fill your CVs based on other people's accomplishments. So that really helped, and that helped me pen down my thoughts really well. And then when I came to the GSD, I ended up taking many multidisciplinary courses across Harvard as well. And then I realized how these connections sort of made sense, and I was comfortable in a room full of policymakers and comfortable with a room full of public health professionals. So yeah, things eventually sort of connected, and it worked out quite well.
That's amazing. I'm also just the idea of the liberal arts fellowship in itself makes me think of the path that I was hoping to go on my application, which is, okay, so as you guys know, I began the MArch 1 program going straight in from architecture. So no breaks, architecture to architecture.
Wow.
Yeah, without that breadth of knowledge, or at least the language and the understanding of the interdisciplinary nature of design, beyond the fact that we also need an engineer and, like the basic things of architecture and design. So also understanding policy and sustainability, and like just beyond these topics that go beyond the design, the physical building, that I am now so fascinated by, and I'm diving into through the MDes Masters in Design Studies program. That's something that I actually also wish I had the opportunity to do, was to like take a breath, branch out through a fellowship similar to what you've experienced.
But you've done it for yourself, right?
Yeah.
See, again, coming back to the point of doing what feels right for you.
Feels right in that time. Yeah. So like making that switch. So you guys, again, know my background, but from architecture to 3 weeks into my fall semester, making a big switch because it just did not feel right to be in the architecture program. I felt like I was still within this heavily design-focused world, heavily physically design-focused world that didn't cater to the social in a way that I think was so important. Before you start anything physically, there's this understanding of the economics, of the policy, the politics of a place that I didn't allow myself, or I wasn't allowed to, time restrictions with an architecture program, to dive into before starting the design process. So I honestly think switching into the MDes program and having to actually reapply and look at the essays in that sense allowed me to have that self-reflection, to know what was best for me in that period. So I'm amazed that our paths have been so different, of course, coming to MDes, but we've also found a lot of similarities in what we're interested in doing today. So I'm in India right now for a World Heritage Fellowship, so I'm thinking about preservation and conservation and social impact through this field that then lends itself to architectural design as well. And you're also looking at like crisis management and like heritage studies as well, and this like intersection that's like beautifully woven in. So it's
I try to. I don't know if it
oh
is.
gosh,
woven.
It is. Our conversations this past week definitely have been. So yeah, it's like something to say that no matter where you're coming from, you're able to design your path forward. We're talking a lot about design and curating your path into your profession, into your master's program. But I believe that we've kind of found that in the GSD in that sense.
Yeah, I think that's really GSD provides that opportunity to do it for yourself. And one also doesn't realize it when you're doing it and when you're trying to have the best permutation combinations and trying to make the best choice of courses. But in retrospect, you realize that, this was like well curated, this worked and this didn't.
Yeah.
And that's really the privilege of the place.
It is. So going a little bit of a step back though into like the myths of applications, I'd love to hear. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you were thinking and like what guided your essays. Like, you know, this in the application process, of course, you're showcasing yourself to a university, but you're also doing a lot of like introspective work. You're really thinking about what you actually appreciate, what you enjoy, and what you want to show forth in the future, whether it's within the institution itself and beyond. So I was wondering, like, what was going through your mind and like making your, I mean, did you also did a portfolio? Yes,
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Oh,
portfolios are just a whole nother level too.
Oh, it was really something, firstly, to manage that full-time fellowship, which was intense, and like all of these new subjects that I was learning, and then also thinking about applying. I started much later. I actually didn't start in the summer. I started in August, September. So it was quite a tight timeline I put myself on, but I remember only trying to focus on one particular program, which was the Art, Culture, Technology program at MIT, and I thought that suited all of my needs and all of my interests most. So I spent 4 months just preparing for that. And it was, in retrospect, I think it was a lot of like shedding down of everything that was not me, because I came up with a very like jargon heavy, impressive essay, but it was just not me. So I think another great thing that came out of this whole fellowship for me was my writing style. And I was trained to write, and I had a mentor who was closely, you know, helping me with that journey. So he would just help me shed everything that was not me and push me to like write in my most authentic voice. So I did a lot of that, and a lot of going back in my childhood and going back in my early training of design and trying to see what made those connections, why I chose certain projects that have shaped me today and my interests today. So it was a lot of going back and looking at courses from undergrad, even certain art projects at high school, also some childhood inclinations that sort of stirred my journey towards the creative and the design side of things. And what was it that really nudged me in this direction? So I went all the way back to my spending time with my grandparents in the village and their lifestyle, and how those shaped my interests and my views of the world. Then I went back to my undergrad thesis project that really shaped a lot of how I see the world today. I worked with indigenous craft communities in the coastal part of Gujarat, and which is an important port in India and still is, and how trade affected, how that the ability to trade between Africa and India affected cultural expression, and how that sort of how such a rich history in trade gets translated onto textiles. It was a textile-based project, so I was looking at a very research. So back then I realized, even though my product and outcomes were tangible, but my interests were always research-oriented and into community and culture and things like that, and art history. So it gave me a lot of reflection time to just think about what really drives me as a person. And then also looking at family influences. My uncle was a curator and an art historian. That affected the way that I saw museums. My grandfather's a historian as well. My mother also worked on the textile gallery in Udaipur. So I think those have also shaped my influences, my works very subtly and unconsciously. And then, to put all of that down in just about 1,000 words was a lot.
Oh my goodness,
and it's, I think, gone through 40 revisions.
Same. Had to be at minimum.
Oh my god. So that's what my writing process looked like.
Yeah, which is really, I mean, it's so fascinating. I think that's the goal of any application, is to get to that point of like, what is your unconscious thinking? What are your unconscious goals? What are things that truly drive you? Because I mean, we can put so much, like our resume is like everything that we've done, but it doesn't show who we are. So those, like, the essay really gets you down to that level. And I feel the same way. Family influences, and looking at my past work, back to high school, back to like when I was a little kid and I was just like learning how to crochet just for the fun of it, or like learning how to sew. Like, I love that you saw those in like the large projects you did, as well as just in the little conversations, like in the village with your grandparents. Like, the beauty of that is something that, you know, you only get to do if you allow yourself time. So I mean, that's like something, a bit of encouragement. I mean, even in the midst of your fellowship too.
Oh yeah.
Somehow going through those, like, I mean, doing all of the work of just like life and then still having the time to sit down and think about the things that matter to you most. I mean, it's a lot of emotional work.
Lot of that.
Yeah, it's rigorous actually when you think about like the intentionality of this essay writing. It's a statement of purpose that's, I mean, it's for your applications, but it's also for your life. It's like something that I go back to quite often.
And at that point, I didn't take the whole exercise so seriously. I did it seriously and sincerely to write it in the best way possible. But I thought, this is just an application. This will change. But no, what comes out of it sticks. And what the work that I'm doing now is really everything that I spoke back then. Almost like when I read it sometimes, I think like, how could I ever? It's almost like a prophecy that's written down. How could I ever imagine that this would come true? I don't imagine those projects coming true back then.
Wow, and then here we are. They're coming true. No, it truly is. I mean, something that I was really driven with. So I had my undergraduate experience, but I didn't really have any like professional like work experience really that I was showcasing in my essay. Well, slightly, like I guess I did some internships here and there, but nothing that was like too, like, you know, driving me in the direction that I was hoping to go in. So a lot of things that I began to realize in, like, you know, the projects that we were just given in class was that I was really fascinated by just like discrete moments with people. Like the way that I like in Habitat for Humanity, like the ability to to build with the families and their reactions and the conversations I had with fellow volunteers, like just those moments of conversation really drew me into the work I was doing, and that showcased in a lot of my projects. So I began to add quotes to my portfolio. That was like a big thing that I've done, and just the way that it shaped my essay was just like, okay, well, what's important to me is like this social impact of individual communities and what their culture, their background, their experiences have shaped what is happening today in today's world. So that began like, you know, where does this come from, and like who am I, and like what is the goals, and like what do I want to accomplish in the future, and like how that brought me to the GSD for architecture. I mean, somehow it brought me there, but I've really like revising my essay for the MDes program, kind of like it's a prophecy almost. It really is. Like I love that word because it's now looking back and it's like that's the opportunity again. Like I mean, we're in public, so we're looking at human groups and like social interaction, even in urban space, like even in large scale, like how that shows itself forward. And I mean, it's brought a lot of opportunities to do that in a more intentional design based way as well. So yeah, but it's amazing how
it is incredible. And thanks for posing that question to me. I mean, I didn't think of it that way until now, in terms of it being a prophecy and how those things actually translate when you enter grad school, because those are your inner sort of directions that you've already taken, but all you need to do is like work on it and then see how it unfolds.
It's something that I do now. Always before I start something big, like before this internship and coming to India, I write myself a thesis. It's just like a one sentence, like, what is this about? Like, what is important to me here? What is important to like me being here? Like, why have I come? Why have I been chosen to come? Like, it just becomes this like really important thing for me.
So interesting. It's so powerful, so simple.
Exactly. And it's something that I go back to weekly and like reflect on again. So it just reminds me of like, you know, who I am and why I'm here. And I call it a thesis because it's just a one sentence, but I also do like an abstract. So I add a few sentences of like, okay, well, these are also things I want to accomplish here. And it's grounded grounded me, and I've only done that because my personal statement has grounded me throughout my entire like, you know, it's something that I feel like it should be an integration of your entire life in a sense. But I mean, it's like a lot of pressure at the same time. So I mean, in my first ever video about like writing dressing, I'm like, just begin. Because when you're just honest with yourself and the things that you're hoping for, like just to begin and write down your thoughts right at the beginning actually shows who you are from the very jump, from the very beginning. So.
The key is to begin.
Yeah, the key is really.
You can stretch it and push it and like tell yourself 100 reasons why you should do it the next day, but it needs to just start.
Exactly.
And then it'll unfold, I think.
And it will unfold. I mean, we're like seeing it and experiencing it, so I hope that's like also encouraging that like it's not something that you're just doing for this quick application, and whether you get in or not into the, you know, that dream school or that hopeful place, is that it's still going to guide you forward. So yeah, and that's the encouragement too. It's like it's not just this once and done. It's really something you can sit with for a bit longer and like appreciate.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, these are the things we're gonna look back at.
I know.
And also laugh at how naive we were.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. There's a few parts of my answer I'm like, did I really?
Yeah.
What was I saying? But no, but very, very true. Well, I think we've gone to a lot about like the essay and everything. I'm wondering, is there anything else like in terms of the application process that like stood out to you even now, or that you're thinking back and like, well, that was just dramatic? Like,
I think like researching the courses and the professors I wanted to work with back then. I don't think I've worked with any of the ones that I've written about, but just knowing about their work, you know, just that curiosity that you jump into the whole application process, which is also exciting. I think, that's one thing I want to highlight, is that yes, it's stressful, and yes, it's a lot of work, inner work that needs to be done. But it's also exciting because you get to learn so much in terms of finding out more about your course, your program, your professors, the place that you're going to be, and also speculate how it's going to shape you as a person, and also use that time to make the decision if you want to be shaped that way, if you want to. So a lot of what happened with me was I applied to 4 very different schools and programs. And the other school that I was sort of debating between going was an engineering heavy school, and it was a phenomenal program, puts you right into industry and like has brilliant returns on paper. But at the end of the day, I would be surrounded by engineers, which is great, but that's not my personality type. Like that's not how I see my larger friend group or my circle being shaped. Because somebody told me, which was really great advice, and I didn't think about it, which was that think of grad school as 2 years, and you know, to take you further in your career, but also think of it as if you're not doing a PhD, perhaps your last education stint, and that shapes a lot of your social circle and who you're around later on in life, in terms of the kind of people, the kind of conversations, the kind of both professional and personal, heavily personal. And then once that was told to me, I sort of started thinking that if I go in a liberal arts university, then yes, there's a whole other world that opens up, which is what I am more suited for, because I'm a naturally curious person, and I like to have conversations with people who come from different backgrounds, and also like the intersectionality that it provides. And then the other university was very engineering focused, and a lot of engineers, it's not to generalize, but they do have a certain path in mind, and that's not the path that I see myself in long term, because I do see myself doing a PhD. So you know, those are also things that you may want to think about during that process, in terms of how the environment that you choose is going to shape your work and yourself going forward.
That is really important, and something that, I mean, I didn't even fully consider, but looking at it now, I'm so grateful for like the little things that kind of pushed me. So one thing that I knew that I really appreciated was the city. Because I knew that at the very least, if the school itself wasn't, you know, giving me the support in terms of like friendships or the the connections that I wanted to make. Well, city living makes it pretty easy to just go somewhere and find some people who are really fascinated by something very random or like the arts or something unique. So yeah. In that sense, I looked at it in terms of place, but like in terms of
and I wish I thought about that a little bit more, because New York would have been a wonderful opportunity for me, but because I come from a small town, and yes, it's wonderful, it's peaceful, but then there are limitations in terms of exposure. So then, putting yourself in a bigger city like New York can be a massive learning curve. So I should have thought about that. And in fact, somebody towards then, when I was making the final decision, they said, why didn't you think about New York as your larger university environment?
That's such interesting, because like the amount of different universities even within the city itself.
Exactly.
You can even just hop. I mean, what's beautiful about like
Boston as well.
Boston really does that too. And Harvard itself, I mean, we have the design school, our bubble, we can call it, but I mean, there's all the other different schools that we've both been able to like branch out at and really find some like wonderful people and fascinating conversations. So yeah, I really love that tip of like looking at what your social circle really could be in your university application. So that's something huge. And an important thing to like, I mean, when we're writing about, the professors that we'd work with or the clubs that we'd be a part of, and thinking about that genuinely is very important. Something that I wrote down and that has actually come to fruition really cool.
You were more sincere than I was.
No, you're good. Was being a part of the National Organization of Minority Architecture Students.
Oh, okay.
And that's been really amazing, because I started it in my undergrad, and I was like hoping that there would be one at Harvard, and my first year there wasn't. But then my second year, actually a really good friend of mine, Sarah Jane, you guys know her, she like picked it back up again, and I got to be a part of that, and like how exciting that was to like bring that back to life. And then I was reading my essay again one day, I was like, wow, that actually happened. Like, but it is funny, because also when you're talking about the professors or the different like classes you be a part of, they do cycle and shift out quite often. So thinking more about that core, like what are those things that you can contribute to that like create like a sustained either honestly an opportunity and experience for other students as well, or something that you will carry with you personally. So that class might be gone, but maybe you're also seeing that in a club that you'll create, or conversations that you're going to have with your classmates in a sense. So I mean, it's something to just like think about for you personally, and something to showcase that shares longevity within your essay too. So yeah,
those are excellent tips, Kola.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I appreciate that. I actually do on my website, scalachama.com, a little plug. I have a Calendly where I will just invite you guys, if you want to go on the website and schedule a 20-minute session with me. I've been in conversation with a few people about their essays, and it's actually super fun.
So cool.
Yeah, it's been really
cool. I mean, inspiring.
You guys are so inspiring. Actually, I've had so many good conversations about just like life experiences that maybe have nothing to do with academics or professional life, but I'm like, you need to write this down, because I'm like drawn in by your stories. So I would love to just chat with you and talk more about essays.
You should take up Kola on this offer.
Yeah. So sweet. But yeah, this has been such a good conversation. I feel like we could go on.
I know, there's just so much to cover.
Literally. Yeah. But thank you so much, Hiteshree. This has been such a good conversation.
To have you at home, to have this chat at home.
So sweet.
It's really special.
She is the best, guys, and we are getting her. She is going to be starting a podcast slash YouTube channel.
I hope so.
Doing interviews about like people doing amazing things, because she is doing amazing things.
This is a prophecy. I hope that comes true.
It's coming true, guys. We're saying it here. You guys can say it in the comments. It'll happen. But yeah, I think I would love to be. I mean, our conversation right now has just been amazing. So imagine her doing this with like multiple different people from all over and in different professions and experiences in life. Like I would tune into that.
You're too kind.
So good.
I hope that starts soon.
It'll be in the description box, guys. Don't worry. I'll be there.
That's a lot of pressure. But that's good.
That'll be great.
That's just the right amount of pressure I need to get started.
Yes. Just encouragement.
Commitment.
But yeah, well, thank you guys so much for watching.
For listening.
Yes, and I will see you in my next video. You'll see Hiteshree soon, for sure. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.